Welcome to this meeting of the local review body of the 1st of February 2024. I can confirm that the meeting has been properly called and is quorate. Can I first ask members to appoint a chair for the meeting, please?
Members, it's Councillor Ian Crothers here. I'm in the room, happy to chair if that's required.
Councillor Campbell's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks Claire, and thanks Ian. I did see you in the room. I'm happy to nominate you if you wish to take the chair.
Happy to take it if required.
I'm happy to second that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Crothers.
Thanks very much, members. Pleasure to get the chance to chair the local review body this morning. So we've appointed chair. So let's see. Right, chair. Right. Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting of the local review body. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the council's website for public listening. Councillor Slater's not in the meeting, I don't think, is it? We'll get to that point later on, but anyways, just for in general terms, remote participants, I'll just, for clarity, I'll just inform you that you can participate remotely at this point, but remote participants, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting. Right, speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. No materials should be posted in the chat function if it's intended as part of the discussion, but sometimes there is anomalies where it has to happen. Standing orders apply, including that only votes will be undertaken by roll call. And finally, all members should speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraph to allow everyone to follow. Item number 2 is a settlement apologies and chair's approval of members' remote participation, which I've already done, members. Claire.
Thank you, Chair. I can confirm we've got 5 members present this morning. 2 apologies being Councillors Howie and Slater. We've got yourself in the Council Hall, and 4 members present on Teams being Councillors Campbell, Dashper, Hill and Jordan.
Thank you very much for that. Let's double check there's nothing in the chat that I need to be aware of before we move on. Nope, not I can see. So, declaration of interest is number 3. Any members have any declarations of interest? Then I'll ask Claire just for you to carry on thereafter. Members, any declarations of interest? No. Claire, I'll just ask you to go through the procedure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I can confirm that there is 1 notice of review for consideration at this meeting. This is item 4, Chapel Farm, Chapel Bray, Moffat, refusal of planning permission in principle for erection of dwelling house 230387 PIP. Members will have noted that the public papers include 3 pages that have been redacted as providing sensitive information. I can provide assurance that all members of the local review body have been provided with the full unredacted copies. Should the local review body require to discuss the detail of what those pages contain, then the governance advice is that members consider to agree to adopt a resolution to exclude the public by virtue of paragraphs 1 and 6 of Schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. After such discussions, the meeting would continue in open session. So, going to your papers, you have the usual documents, being your notice of review, report and handling, the observation of the appointed officer on the applicant's agent's notice of review. You have the comments of the applicant's agent on on observations of the appointed officer. You have the planning application form, the decision letter from Dumfries and Galloway Council, relevant extracts from Dumfries and Galloway Local Development Plan 2 and National Planning Framework, and you have the photos of the application site and the locality. The grounds of refusal is that the proposed dwelling would be remote from the existing farmstead and therefore contrary to the requirements of supplementary guidance housing in the countryside. The requested method of determination: the applicant has asked that the review be dealt with by means of an inspection of the land to which the review relates, in addition to an assessment of the relevant information provided with the review documents, including the submission of new information from the applicants. The grounds as stated in the notice of review are, in summary, the application meets all the criteria set out in LDP 2 Policy H3 and the supplementary guidance in relation to retirement succession of a viable farm holding. This has been clearly demonstrated in the supporting statements. The decision states that the proposed dwelling would be remote from the farm, but the distance is approximately 420 metres from the farm hub. The distance cannot be described as remote. It can be walked in less than 7 minutes. The reporter in a recent local appeal elsewhere in the council area, which was sustained on 12th of January 2023, stated that I do not find the distance between the appeal site and the farm buildings to be particularly significant in practical terms. The distance of approximately 380 metres remains close enough for someone in the house to be quickly on hand and at the farm if required. The distance from the farm to the house in this case is approximately 420 metres and meets the criteria of within easy walking distance. The case officer provided in her email of 10th of October 2023 that the council don't have a formal distance set, and the general principle is to offer support for developments that are physically and visually associated with the existing operations or other buildings. That is clearly the case with this application. The photos provided show that the farm buildings and the land are clearly visible from the site, as it is the site from the farm. The application site, which is part of the farm holding, cannot be farmed economically due to its shape and small size. It is used for rough grazing. It is a suitable site for a retirement dwelling house, as there would be no loss of good quality agricultural land. The location of the proposed house does not have a physical and visual association with the farm buildings. It does have a physical and visual association with the farm buildings and land as required by the policy. There is no other suitable site on the farm for the proposed house, as all the land is fully utilised by the farming operation, and because of of the severe contours of the land close to and surrounding the farm hub. There are no available houses or redevelopment opportunities on the farm as confirmed in the supporting statements. All the land surrounding the farm is fully utilised by the farming operations, and areas close to and adjoining the farm hub are used weekly for lambing and regular stock inspections in a safe environment. The development potential around the farm for residential or farm buildings closer to the hub of the farm is restricted because of the archaeological interest. It would not be practical or economical to erect a dwelling house nearer to the farm because of the gradients of the land, and this was made clear to the case officer when a joint site visit took place. It would be very surprising if any surveyor or construction expert would recommend constructing a dwelling house on the severely contoured land because of the engineering solutions required and the considerable construction cost. One of the applicants suffers from a progressive medical condition, and the design of the proposed dwelling house will allow easy access to all areas for them. The 7 dwelling houses referred to in the appointed officer's comments are all located within a short walking distance to the farm from the proposed site, and therefore the number of houses is irrelevant. The location of the new dwelling house would be on land owned and farmed by the owners and does have a presence on the farm unit. The reference to a small building group in the appointed officer's comments is irrelevant, as the application is for a house for a retiring farmer, and the proposal meets all the criteria set out in LTP 2 and Policy 17 A6 of MPF4. The relevant development plan policies, and you should note that these differ from the relevant policies set out in the report and handling, are for LTP 2, we have OP1, OP2, H3, NE2, IN9 and T2. Relevant supplementary guidance is design quality and placemaking, housing in the countryside, and sustainability, reducing carbon emissions in buildings, and dark sky friendly lighting. From National Planning Framework 4, these are policies 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 22, 29 and 30. So the main issues for the local review body to consider are the panel prepared to accept the late submission of new information from the applicant in response to the appointed officer's comments, which were not before the appointed officer when the original decision was taken, and if so, how much weight would the panel wish to attach to this new information? Does the proposal fail to comply with the terms of the development plan? In particular, does the proposal fail to accord with LTP 2 Policy H3, housing in the countryside, particularly in relation to the third bullet of LTP 2 Policy H3, where the proposal is for a single house associated with the succession planning of a viable farm holding, where there are no buildings suitable or economically viable for the conversion of a residential use on the farm unit? Does the proposal meet the guidance set out in paragraphs 1.4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 and 4.5 of the LTP supplementary guidance on housing in the countryside? Does the proposal accord in principle with the terms of MPF4 Policy 17 on rural homes? Specifically, has it been demonstrated that it meets the requirements for it to be a single house associated with succession planning of a viable farm holding, where there are no buildings suitable or economically viable for conversion to residential use on the farm unit? If the proposal is considered to be acceptable, is the siting of a proposed house appropriate in terms of both its location, relative to the distance of the farm hub and in the context of its position with the open countryside. If it is not considered that the proposal accords with the terms of the development plan, are there a set of material considerations of sufficient weight to justify its departure from the terms of the development plan? If so, on what grounds would such a decision be made, and what reasons would members give for such a decision if it was considered that the proposal departs from the terms of the development plan? And if members are minded to reverse the appointed officer's decision and instead grant planning permission for this proposal, what set of conditions and reasons would members wish to see attached, if any? And if members are instead minded to vary the terms of the appointed officer's decision and make reference to the relevant determining development policies beyond those stated within the delegated report and the decision notice, what changed to specific reasoning for the decision would be required, and which additional policies, if any, would be referenced. So having outlined your papers, it now falls to the LRB to determine whether you have sufficient information to consider the review. It's confirmed that there will be no representations from any party here today. You have the following options. You can decide you have sufficient information before you to enable to determine the review today. Request further information in the form of written representations that the LRB would be required to state precisely the information it was seeking and who would provide it. Resolve to hold a hearing, again specifying who would be invited to speak and on what matters. Resolve to hold a site visit, accompanied or unaccompanied. This can be done in conjunction with any of the above, but would obviously not allow a decision to be made today. And if the local review body resolves it has sufficient information and that no further procedure is required, then the local review body has the full powers to uphold, reverse or vary a determination. The decision notice will include a statement of the terms in which the planning authority has decided the case reviewed. You have a planning advisor present at your meeting in relation to this case. It is confirmed that he has not had any involvement in this case prior to the submission of the notice of review and was not the case officer or the appointed officer for this application. He is here purely to provide independent advice as needed on matters of planning policy, law or process to the local review body. You also have a solicitor present here today who will act independently if the local review body require any specific advice on matters of law. So if members are clear and no further clarification is required, I'll now ask the Chair to lead the debate and in the first instance to lead you through the agenda papers together to decide if you have sufficient information before you to make a determination today.
Thanks very much, Karen. Just on that particular point, I think historically, because of I'm thinking of the context of this particular review, and the site location is ultimately the point of discussion, I would say, as we go forward. We're looking at this stage going through the papers, so we're going through the index of context of index, and we'll decide have we got enough information at that point. But normally we've been asked to do a site visit, but normally say, right, okay, we've got enough information, so that would almost exclude at that point ruling out a site visit. But if through the discussion, which I know historically sometimes happens, it may or may not happen, they've decided, okay, because of topography, logistical, so on, and different things that come up through the discussion, and the photographs that we haven't seen on it, which Robert will display before long, we say, oh, well, actually, because the site location does look a bit constrained, or actually, no, you could quite easily put a house in there. That's the gist, I think, where the conversation will go. Can we then revisit potentially a site visit at that point? I suppose that's what I'm getting to. I think through the community, through our deliberations, it may or may not need a site visit. Very difficult at this early point to decide. Now I can go through this and get to that point at that time. I think historically we have been able to do that, but probably never done it. We've discussed it in the past, but I just thought I'd better raise that point. There's one other point, because you've touched on it before I get to it. It's, so the grounds stated, it's part C, it's the third page in. So it's the grounds stated in the notice of review, pages 23 to 21 actually. Now I think there's further information here to what, because I would have looked this up if I'd seen it previously, to what I've seen in the papers. I could be corrected. Maybe get to that point when we get to these particular pages, but it's got the reference number of the planning appeal, which I looked for in that, so because I was going to have a look to try and put it into context as background information, but that's something I was going to ask today, so I don't know if that was actually in the papers or not. Maybe come to you on that one, Robert, or it wasn't, but if no, we can address it at the time as far as further information is concerned. Maybe as we go through it, it's prepping you, and we'll go through it. So we'll just come back to members. I'll just take the standard procedure that we take. Let's get my glasses on so I can see what I'm doing. So it's index of content, sorry. So what members, what I'm looking for, I'll go through each section at a time. I'll outline it, open it up to members. If I think most of us here have been on here a few times, I'll ask if you've got any particular points you want to raise on these pages. So the first point is pages 1731. It's a notice of review dated 21st November 23, submitted by the agent John McCall on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Hutchinson, the applicants. So I'll give it just a wee minute. Members, just so I'm clear as well, I'm more than happy to, if for some reason we get mixed up, which is quite easy to do, we can come back and refer back, just for the sake of, and ultimately when we get into debate, we can come back to all these points. This is made with particular clarification, potential typos, information that's requested. Part 2 is the pages 35 to 74, don't see anybody coming in. Report and handling, so that's the report itself for determining the delegated power, and related correspondence, pages 35 to 74.
Councillor Campbell.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I take it you're going through the list of documents and you're on section 2, report of handling. Is that correct?
Absolutely, that's it.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, there was a couple of points of clarification, and if I may, on page 36, where it says the relevant documents, plans and policies, I'm surprised to see in that list there that NPF 4 policy 17 wasn't in there, because that comes under, I think it's A6, which it does make reference further in the report of that, but I'm surprised that it wasn't in the case officer's report as listed as some of those planned policies. The other item on the same is page 39 and 40. While it's got the recommended decision, refuse on the grounds, etc., and the reasons, now it doesn't actually stipulate whether it's H3 or NPF or whatever one that it's kind of open to interpretation, that although saying that the appointed officer's observations does sort of make reference to that on page 79, which is the proposal is contrary to policy H3 of Dumfries and Galloway. I would have thought that would have been in the case officers. So just a couple of points of clarity, if I may, Chair.
Thanks for that, John. Robert?
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to answer that. I had noticed that myself when I looked in the report and handling. I'm not sure quite what's gone wrong within the content of that. It might be a cut and paste error from a previous report. I don't know. But that delegated report, as you pointed out, if you look at page 36, in my view, it's not quoting the correct policies. What I would advise the members, as sitting as a local review body, are making a de novo consideration of this application. So I would instead rely on the policies that are set out on pages 143 to 147 of your papers today. So that comprises the relevant parts of LDP2. So what you're looking at there, policies OP1, development considerations, OP2, design quality and placemaking, policy H3, housing in the countryside, which is obviously key in this case, policy NE2, regional scenic area, policy IN9, wastewater drainage, and policy T2, location of development / accessibility. Further to that, on page 149 of your papers, you've got the relevant local development plan 2 LDP2 supplementary guidance. So those relevant documents are design, quality and placemaking, housing in the countryside, sustainability, reducing carbon emissions in buildings, and dark sky friendly lighting. And then finally in your papers on pages 151 to 161, you've got the relevant policies contained within MPF 4. So that's Policy 1, Sustainable Places, Policy 2, Climate Mitigation and Adaptation, Policy 3, Biodiversity, Policy 4, Natural Places, Policy 12, Zero Waste, Policy 14, Design Quality in Place, Policy 16, Quality Homes, Policy 17, Rural Homes, Policy 18, Infrastructure First, Policy 22, Flood Risk and Water Management, Policy 29, Rural Development, and Policy 30, Tourism. So those are the relevant development plan considerations you should rely upon. The point about the reason for the decision is well made as well. So I think that was on decision notice, was it page 135 to 139. So the actual reason for the decision is on page 136 of the papers. Try not to get lost here. In my view, the decision should say that the proposed dwelling would be remote from the existing farmstead, and therefore, I mean, that's the view of the appointed officer, and therefore contrary to the requirements of LDP2 Policy H3 and related supplementary guidance housing in the countryside. So certainly if members were minded to, if you like, up or go with the appointed officer's decision, I would suggest that you want to vary the terms of the reasoning there. So you're varying the decision so that it reflects the relevant parts of the policy. In principle, this is an in principle application, so that's what you're looking at, is the principle of a dwelling house at this location acceptable or not. If you're looking at MPF 4 Policy 17, Rural Homes, it does mention at point 6 retirement succession being an option, but it doesn't particularly set criteria for that. So I don't think it's legitimate to include MPF 4 Policy 17 within that reasoning for the decision, but certainly LDP2 Policy H3 and supplementary guidance document housing in the countryside, yes. Hope that helps.
John, I'll
Can
make
I come
sure.
back in?
Absolutely, John. Any member that comes in and asks the questions, all get a chance to come back in and either make sure they're satisfied or have supplement questions to that. So back to you, John.
Yeah, I'm quite satisfied with what Robert was saying there. However, he did mention page 149 with the LDP2 supplementary guidance, which is meant to be a list of documents. Well, I don't seem to have any of those documents whatsoever, because when I turn over the page, I get to page 151, all I've got is the MPF4 policies, which I did allude to, in particular Policy 17. There's absolutely nothing in here that gives me design, quality, placemaking, housing in the countryside, etc., etc. There's no extracts in my document. I don't know if I'm just a one-off being chair, but I would have liked to have seen sight of that. Although it does make reference to H3 and all the other supplementary reasons for houses in the countryside in other areas, like the appointed officer mentions these particular policies. But however, I don't seem to have that in my report. Sorry, Chair.
That's correct, Chair. I mean, in preparing the papers for the local review body, you do have the list of policies in LDP2 and MPF4. When it comes to the supplementary guidance documents, because they're so large, they're not reproduced as part of the papers. There's simply a list given of the ones that are relevant. If it helps at any point, though, Chair, I do have the Housing in the Countryside supplementary guidance document open in front of me. As the clerks mentioned, I think paragraphs 1.4, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 and 4.5 of that document are key. So if at any point yourself or any of the other members here today want me to read out that document, I'm quite happy to do so.
Okay with that, John?
I'm fine with that, Chair. I'm not going to die in the ditch, because I've already reiterated that a number of these supplementary statements, shall we say, are in the papers anyway throughout the document. So, I'm comfortable with that. Thank you, Chair.
No, Thank you. Just out of it, maybe interest, but I picked up on some of the same stuff, and the typo I thought in the report of handling in regards to the actual decision, I just thought that should give an indication, I should say, in regards to the stress that's on development management at this moment in time. And the actual, when I got to the decision notice, it was quite clear contained within that, and Robert's actually outlined that. In regards to NPF 14, what's missing in the report, and I'll mention it in other hours later in the report, is the policy intent and the policy outcomes, which I think it brings it into context, and that's, so the policy intent is to encourage, promote and facilitate the delivery of more high quality, affordable and sustainable rural homes in the right locations, and the outcomes is to improve choice of homes across tenures, so that identify local needs of people and communities in rural and island areas, and homes are provided to support sustainable rural communities and are linked with service provision. I thought not so much, but certainly the first two I thought linked directly to this case. But anyways, we'll keep moving on. So that was pages 35 to 74. John's brought it up. I don't see anybody else coming in with anything. So pages 77 to 79, which is the observations of the appointed officer on the applicant's agent's notice of review. So I'm looking at the screen, members, obviously nobody else in the room, so I'm relying on anybody coming in, and if, like I say, we can come back to any particular points if we're going too fast. John, Councillor Campbell, is that your hand coming up? John?
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. Yeah, sorry, which page numbers are we talking about here? Is it the observations of the appointed officer 75 to 79? Is that correct?
I've not got my mic on. It's 75, so it's 70 to 79. You're absolutely right.
Right, okay, yeah. I did mention about the appointed officer did on page 79 mention about contrary to policy H3. However, there was a paragraph just above that I wasn't quite sure what they were actually trying to get at this point. It says all planning applications, this is the last sentence, all planning applications required to be determined in accordance with the terms of the development plan, and in the professional opinion of the appointed officer, that was not the case here. Maybe a wee bit of elaboration of what it was actually meaning in that point. Or was it she or Lindsay? Yeah. Chair, if that's okay.
That's perfect. Robert?
Thanks, Chair. I did notice that the wording wasn't abundantly clear as to what was meant, but what I took from that was that in the view of the appointed officer, this was an application that was contrary to the terms of the development plan.
I'm happy with that, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for that. See if there's any that's just your hand up to now, John. Comments on the applicant's agent on observations of the appointed officer, pages 83 to 87. I note that is, and we might come back to that, there is restricted information contained within there which we have a copy of, elected members, not in the public domain. So if we want to come back to that at some point, we'll take a resolution to exclude the public. We'll do that later on though. The next one. Pages 91 to 131 is plan application form submitted on the 27th of February, associated plans and supporting information. The only point I was raising that earlier was that they're asking for a, oh no, that was historically, but we were asking for a site visit. That was under the plan application. No, members like to say.
Councillor Dashper.
Councillor Dashper. Ben?
Hi, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm just reading the bit after page 83 and such, and I know it goes into details about the woman's health who lives there, and there's NHS information and such. Just from my own learning, I'm just wondering, is this actually, do we take that into consideration as a material planning condition? Or otherwise, you know, I mean, if the information is here, I'm conscious that applications are decided on material planning conditions, but I don't know if like NHS and health information is a material planning condition? I don't know. Thanks.
Thanks. Thanks for that. Quite an interesting question. Always have, but Robert?
Thanks, Chair. My view in this case would be it is a relevant material consideration because the argument that the agent is bringing forward here is that building a new house would be advantageous to the health of one of the occupiers, and as a result, I think it is material to the consideration of this case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ben. And like I said, feel free to ask. We'll have to exclude the public. We'll come back to the information. It's probably something I want to discuss myself. Had similar thoughts drawn about that. Don't see anybody else coming in. So I think we're on pages, I know we went back a bit there. We were 91 to 131. We went back retrospectively. I don't see anybody I don't see anybody else coming in, so I had pages 135 to 139. This is the decision letter from Dumfries and Galloway Council dated the 17th of October. I think one point we've picked up it's accurate in regards to the decision. Pages 143 to 173, which is the relevant extracts from Dumfries and Galloway Local Development Plan 2 and National Planning Framework. And the points which I've already pointed out, actually I was going to point out there that it's the policy intent and outcomes is missing from that particular pieces of information, but managed to get that from the copy of the electronic version I've got, which I think was relevant to material to the consideration of any application, and this as well, it puts it into context. So the photos of the application site, pages 177 to 180, I wonder if at this point we're probably relevant to ask Robert to give us a rundown with the photos, make any comments that he thinks appropriate in regards to that. We could take questions on that, then I'll ask at that point, members, do we have enough information to make a determination today or otherwise? Robert.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just happy to present the pictures. These are the same as they appear on pages 177 to 180 of the papers you've got in front of you. I haven't undertaken a site visit here. These have been provided to me by the case officer. So moving to the first slide, I understand some of these images are from Google Earth as well. So if you see symbols on them like the cursor you've got there, just to the right of the picture, that's why. So you're looking at this. This is the entrance to Chapel Farm itself on the right-hand side. Next slide is showing Chapel Farm. This is from the northwest. So you've got the town of Moffat in the background there, so you can see it's quite elevated. The next slide is a view looking south with the entrance to Chapel Farm again on your left-hand side there. You can just see the yellow, it looks like a grit bin sitting there, so the entrance to the farm itself just beyond. The next slide, it's a view from the northwest. It's looking at the application site, which I understand is on the right-hand side. Just beyond that access spur. The next slide, it's a closer view from the northwest looking towards the application site. And the next slide, it's moving around, it's a view from the south with the site here on the left-hand side of the road. So where you can see that telegraph pole on the left-hand side, the site is behind that, as I understand it. You've also got the arrow there in the sky on the right-hand side of that slide. So that is showing the kind of general location of Chapel Farm. I actually think that's moved slightly since I prepared this presentation. So if you see the kind of clump of deciduous trees on the skyline there on the right-hand side, where the arrow is now is a house. It should actually be further to the right-hand side. So you can see the lower lying dark buildings, and there's some white buildings in there as well. That's where Chapel Farm is there on the right-hand side. So I'm afraid that arrow's moved since it was first produced. And the next slide is a closer view. So that's the existing second dwelling house that's at the site within the farmstead. I think there's another slide to go. And this, not great quality, but again, it's a view from closer to the application site itself, and this is looking towards Chapel Farm. Again, you can see on the right-hand side that kind of clump of deciduous trees in the skyline. You can see the low farm buildings just behind that, and you've got that house as well on the left-hand side in between the two. and that's just it's a similar-ish image kind of zoomed in. The other thing I would point out, obviously the agent has also submitted photographs that have been annotated, and they appear in your papers on pages 29 to 31.
Thanks so much for that, Robert. Any questions on the photographs themselves, members? Location. I suppose what's... Robert, have we got any that shows... there is some, I think, contained within here, what you're saying, but it's trying to understand... I'll put this into context first. The report of handling is quite clear that there's only one piece of the jigsaw missing in regards to a successful outcome for the applicants in this occasion, and that's the site location. Other than that, they meet all the other tests when it comes to HD, and I would say policy 17 within NPF4 as well. Their argument is, and there's been further information added, and I think it's important to get to the crux of this, but it's the understanding the topographical layout of the farm itself and how it works, because the arguments is that if we put the farm in a location, like maybe the farmhouse or this house in particular, it's been asked for, in a particular location, it makes it prohibitive towards Mrs. Hutchinson, who is a disabled person who needs accessible access, wheelchair accessible access. There's 3 gates, and it links right into the middle of the operational workings, whether it's with sheep or cows and so on and so forth. So I'm trying to understand. For me, it's a crux. So when we're looking at this, what isn't obvious from our photographs, we get the generality in regards to this application site itself, but round about the farm and understanding that particular part, right? Okay, has the argument been made so it is impossible to put a house, we're talking about the hub or the unit, however it's described, right in the middle of the holding itself? Or is it actually, can we safely say, right, okay, no, there is no real sites available there, not only for the accessibility reasons for the applicant, but for the logistical and future-proofing or the business prospects, I would say, of the actual farm itself, because I think that's what's been argued. So I just wanted to put that, members, into context for myself. You're probably getting a view of where I'm thinking here as well, but it's that particular, do we have that level of topographical view and understanding? I think some of the photographs that have been sent on gives us a little bit of that, but I'm not advocating a site visit or otherwise at this moment in time. Just try to understand, can we establish that level of information? But Councillor Campbell, before you come in, Robert is wanting to come in as well. John?
Are you inviting me, Chair, first?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get you first in case we're picking up on the same things. Yep.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Chair. Yeah. I mean, I was looking at the photographs that Duncan had put up on the screen, which we've also got in the back of the report. Most of them were taken from Google, Street View or whatever you want to call it. However, there's also other photographs that the applicants have put in themselves on page 29 to page 31. Now, particular page 29, which is where they're actually standing on the site with a view of the farm dead centre behind that telegraph pole. I'm kind of coming from your sort of vein, Chair, that it's a matter of perspective. You could look at as many photographs as you want, or as many ordnance survey maps or whatever it is, but it just does not give you that particular feel. There's a wee bit of contradiction between certain photographs here in the report. One actually shows a clear view, or in my view, it looks as if, it's a lot closer than what we think it is. But then the case officer's photographs at the back of the report suggests, or Google Maps is suggesting, that it's actually further away than what it probably is. So I'm not quite sure just exactly distance-wise are we talking about here. So I'll leave it at that at the moment, Chair, and see what others think.
John, if you don't mind, I'll just tag on to the back of that as well, because I mentioned it earlier through the Department of Plan and Environment Appeals that there's been an appeal, and that's been referenced within the paper. I haven't got the detail of that. Have you got any information in regards to that? Because again, it's wondering, okay, if that's the case and it was allowed and it was almost identical distance from, I think the LRB's made a recent decision as well over in the west of the region, something very similar. But what material consideration should we be taking of that as well? Maybe that's in further debate, but I think it's relative to what's being asked here, because John's saying like, it doesn't look that far away, but it's hard to put it into context with the photographs here. But I'll let you allow. So similar, on the same vein, Robert, but I'll pass it to you.
Okay. Thanks, Chair. Just looking at the location of the site, you've obviously seen various pictures. You've also got pictures from the agent within the papers, which I think it was important to draw to your attention. In terms of the actual application site, you can see that on in your papers rather. I'm trying to find the page number. Pages 111 show a kind of wider kind of location plan type view, but shows the location of Chapel Farm, it shows the site, and it shows the associated fields with that. So that gives you an idea of proximity. As far as an actual distance, I understand it to be 380 metres from the actual core of the Chapel Farm unit, if you like, the kind of steading, if you like, if you want to call it that. I might need to check that. It may be 420. I know. I mean, turning now, what's confusing me is the appeal case that's referenced there. Now, I put the reference in there so that members, if they wanted to, could go away and look at that case. It was an appeal decision that was made on the 12th of January last year, so it was material to the case at the time. Now, it follows that each case falls to be determined on its own merits, and each case is different. But one of the things, one of the reasons the agent has brought this forward is because it looked at the issue of proximity in that case for a retirement succession house, as is the proposal here, to the actual farmsteading, and that drew certain conclusions. The reporter drew the conclusion that he didn't feel that it was too distant from the main farm unit in that case. I'm trying to look at it. I think it was paragraph 15. Yeah, the reporter said, "I do not find the distance between the appeal site and the farm buildings to be particularly significant in practical terms. The distance of approximately 380 metres remains close enough for someone in the house to be quickly on hand at the farm if required." It's that proposal that was a distance of 380 metres. With this one, I'm fairly sure that the distance is 420 metres. But what is clear when I look through the papers and when I look at the appointed officer's decision, what is clear is the crux of the issue is the distance, if you like, of the site, being acceptable in principle from the main farm unit, and whether or not that complies with the development plan, principally LDP2 policy H3 and the supplementary guidance. And when you're looking at the supplementary guidance, it's that part of it in paragraphs 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 and 4.5 that are really the key issues. So I think that's the judgment you've got to make. It's on proximity. Is there an alternative closer to the site, or is this acceptable in its own right?
I'm happy with that. What about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, Robert was mentioning the supplementary guidance. What page is that on? The 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 or whatever? Because that was one of the reasons why when I brought up about page 149, although it tells you the LDP2 supplementary guidance, it's not there. And you've already yourself referenced, Chair, that you had the electronic version, which, I could quite happily put my PC on and get that up, but I'm looking for it actually in the report, if that's possible.
Yep, no. John, Robert?
Thanks, Chair. I mean, as I said previously, the LDP2 supplementary guidance documents, because of their size, aren't reproduced in the LRB papers. But if you're looking at the actual supplementary guidance document, section 4 and paragraphs 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 and 4.5 are at the top of page 10 of that supplementary guidance document. Now, I've got a copy of that document open in front of me, so if it helps, I can read out that part of the guidance.
I suppose, so at this point, we're not broken into session yet. We're still looking at photographic evidence, and I'm enjoying the fact that we're going to do this particular theme. And I think, John, for on the back of what you're saying there, and a couple of things that you've been saying, I picked up on page 167, and it was the last paragraph in there in the policy section. So it's regards to the national planning framework, and it just so we're absolutely clear in our own mind as we're going forward as decision makers. And I think we get told this in training and so on and so forth, and the training was supposed to be a training session this morning, it was cancelled, but it says planning decisions, second sentence going into third last paragraph, sorry. Planning decisions must be made in accordance with the development plan. Remember, this is de novo, so we're starting from scratch, this is fresh look. Unless material considerations indicate otherwise, that is, so I'll say that again, planning decisions must be made in accordance with the development plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. But then it goes on to say it is for the decision makers, being elected members in this case, to determine what weight to attach to policies on a case-by-case basis. Now that was something that resonates with me most of the times, but it kind of jumped out at me here as well. So I think, on top of the questions, Robert's already said, listen, we're looking back at this de novo, we've got further information applied. So I think as we go forward in debate and decide whether we're going to, have we got enough information? So going back to the points you're picking up, even as of yet at this late stage with the photographs and the policies that maybe not contained within their papers, but I think we have got links and we've had training and so on and so forth. But if we haven't got that information, we can get that level of information, come back and revisit this if we need a site visit. And I think, but that's the emphasis in mind. That's my starting block. This is, we're looking at this afresh. We've had further information, maybe information we need to see ourselves. The planner themselves, the case officer had a site visit. There was a difference of view, I would say. You see that through the email trail as well, between the team leader and the original case officer who put the report forward. And it's trying to marry all that up. But I just wanted to bring that into place because we're starting from nothing here. And if there's any further information, and that's probably the point I'm at now, because I don't see anybody else coming in. We've been through all the sections, the photos was the last bit, we've revisited with a full discussion on them. But like I said, if at some point we get to later on, if we've got enough information, we decide now we've got enough information to go on and determine this, if for some reason something material comes up, we can stop and halt at that point, and I think we've had that governance advice historically. So members, I would put it here at that. Do you think at this stage we have enough information, or I think the two things we've discussed in particular, there's been links within the documents that would give us further information that we've discussed. Are we happy enough that links were there, and we've got historical, I suppose, experience on this anyways, and in regards to a site visit, we've been asked specifically to undertake a site visit so we can understand I suppose the workings of the farm, the topographical outlay, the difficulties between if there is a site there which would be applicable or appropriate, excuse me, how that would inhibit the movements of the particular occupant of this house, being Mrs. Hutchinson. So have we got enough information, members, do you think, at this moment in time in regards to going forward, at least going into debate and potentially making a decision? Members, John, go on in.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, some of the points that I was making earlier, particularly around about photographs, the ordnance survey maps, etc., some of them aren't really clear in the document, actually, if I'm honest. So I feel that information needs to be addressed one way or another. Whether that's a site visit, I'm not so sure. It might be the best outcome in this case. And the document itself, with the missing information, especially around about supplementary guidance, I know the whole document's a huge document, but the extracts, at least, could have been in the report. It's all very well, Mr. Duncan having it sitting open for his perusal, but it doesn't help me as a elected member at this stage. I'll leave it there at the moment, Chair, and see what others think. But I just feel that maybe we could do with a little bit more information or even a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Campbell, I should have said first, John. So have other members coming in, hopefully, but if not, I mean, there is an alternative to that, John. I'm happy to go with either, with whatever the review body feels. That I think an alternative is to potentially go through the exclude the public, go through the private information and consider that, because I think that's relevant to our discussion. We have to do that at some point. Adjourn for half an hour. Once we've done that, allow Robert to get the information to us, consider that extra information, and if at that point we think, no, not really, we can talk about a site visit at that point. Members, would that be a viable option going forward? Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm happy with that, because the exempt papers, I would like to consider that as part of this, because we did mention that, without going into details on that exempt paper, that it is relevant to this planning matter. So I'd be happy if you want to adjourn first of all, and then we can go into the exempt paper and then come back in, and hopefully that Mr. Duncan's got the extracts from excuse me, the supplementary guidance. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much for that, John. I'll just give a wee minute if members are looking to come in. If not, I'll make a proposal in regards to that. I'm just finding the correct word in regards to excluding the public. You see what page it's on? It is outlined, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, there it is. I see it, members. So I'll just give a wee second. See, right, okay, members. So I'll make a proposal. Is that firstly, well, no, I suppose this will, no, two parts to it. I'll do this one first in proper order. That we agree to adopt a resolution to exclude the public by virtue of paragraphs 1 and 6 of Schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973, so we can allow ourselves to discuss the confidential private information. Thereafter, that we adjourn for half an hour, which gives Robert, our independent advisor, the chance to get the advice that's been asked for. Any further advice, I'll give an opportunity. Any piece of supplementary guidance we think's missing, or just policies in general. So it gives Robert a chance to get that, what we don't see within the report, and come back to us, and we'll re-adjourn. So we'll allow up to 15 minutes to look at the private confidential paper, then half an hour after that, which gives us 11:28. Let's just come back 10 and quarter. Let's say 10 past 12. Okay, we're just going 25 past 11. So if we can go into private session, if members, we'll have to get a confirmation, so I'm moving that as a proposal. If members are comfortable, we'll need at least somebody to come back and say they agree with that we go into private session in the short term, then we adjourn to allow Robert to get that further information. Do we have a seconder in regards to that in real terms?
If you would like me to second, Chair, I'm happy to second that we exclude the public and go into private session. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, and I'll just assume that we're comfortable with adjourning thereafter and come back at 10 past 12. Members, so we do have a member of the public here. Apologies for that. But we have to go into private session. You're probably aware of information anyways, but we'll through governance advice, we'll come back to, you'll be advised accordingly. Fiona will just come and see you. Members, so we'll just go to empty the chamber, so to speak, and then we'll just give it a couple of minutes. We'll open the meeting back up. That says live streaming again, from my understanding. Yep. So, we've considered the exempt information. We've discussed that. We've had a little break thereafter, and we've had a chance, I think, to digest the further information that we got from Robert via Fiona. So, just for the absolute record, are we content? The next decision we'll have to make, happening to find information what we've got, which I think probably, John, you answered that when we were still in private session. And have we got enough information in which to make a decision today, a determination? We'll open up to members first before I make any comments. I'll tell you what I'll do, and just, John, go on, but I just want to make sure everybody is here as well. But Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I did make reference earlier on about the difference in photographs, and I think you've also made reference about topography, especially when you're looking at different maps, etc. So I'm not sure if I've got sufficient information through those photographs of the actual layout of what's being proposed and where the actual farm is. I'm happy to leave it there at the moment to see if others wish to make any statements or whatever. Thanks, Chair.
No, thank you. I'm comfortable going on a site visit, but I am always conscious there's a risk there with the local review body that whoever turns up to the site visit can participate in the decision thereafter, and there's a number of people here from very much west of the region, and it's much more difficult for them to get to Moffat than it is for yourself and myself, John in particular. I'd be comfortable to go on a site visit to take on that further information. I think it would be a benefit, but I'd be a bit of give and take in regards to whether it's essential because of the other aspects we've discussed through this and we'll probably discuss further. John, back to you.
Yeah, that was my thoughts entirely, you know, because we have been here before, Chair, that whoever takes part in this debate has to be the same people that take part in after the site visit. If you don't make a site visit, unlike a planning application, for example, you cannot take part. We've been here before, Ian, and you're absolutely right, the distance. But if a site visit is being proposed, and then it's really up to the members to make sure that they do participate in that site visit. Otherwise, they take no further part in the debate. Thanks for pointing that out, Chair.
No, thank you. Thanks very much. So I am going to come to, I think, Chrissy and Ben in particular, and probably take your lead. Do you think there's an essential need for a site visit? Chrissy first, or Ben first, sorry, then Chrissy.
Sorry, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm in two minds about it. I think that it's all subjective and we won't really know until we actually do go and see it in person. So I'm minded for a site visit, but I'm also very conscious that for me, that would be a 4-hour round trip, 2 hours there, 2 hours back. So yeah, I don't know if Chrissy's got any thoughts. I think that site visit is probably the correct option, but I'm not, yeah, I may not be able to go to that personally, even though I think it's the correct option. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that, Ben. And it's 7 hours. I've done it, including the hour site visit. Chrissy?
Yeah, my feeling's a bit like Ben. You know, it is a long way to go, and I kind of feel that if we had the exact measurements and exact guidance on that a site visit would be relevant in some cases, you can see, but for me, measurements are as good as seeing. Looking at the photos, it is a long way, and if there was to be a site visit proposed, the site visit would need to be in the middle of the day due to the travelling time there and back. So it would take up a full day, but let's see how we go with this.
Mm-hmm. Just to be fully inclusive, Emma, I'll just about to come to you. I've seen your thumb came up before, but I thought I'd better just ask you explicitly. Emma, Councillor Jordan?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to attend a site visit. In fact, I think it might help me to understand where this proposed dwelling could be placed. And I think the amount that we have to travel is irrelevant. because as elected members, that is our duty sitting on the pack. So I'm happy for a site visit, and however far we've got to travel is just, it's part of our role, isn't it? Thank you.
No, thank you very much. So probably at that point then, so there's 3 is definitely on the same wavelength, and that, well, all 5 of us are, but it might be more difficult, I think, for Ben and Chrissy. So, but I think because, I think you're absolutely right, Emma, it is irrelevant in regards to the distance, but at the same time, we have to discuss that as an option, because we've come back with a minimum of 3 people, which I think we've got for the quorum, and that's where the risk lay for me. If we come back and 2 of us turn up, the decision can't be made, and you've got to come back to the start. That would have made it very difficult, even reputational damage for that matter. But I think probably we'd have a site visit, and but ultimately, Chrissy, you want to come in, I'll hear what your view is first.
Yeah, hi. I do understand that it is part of a councillor's role to attend things, but sitting on 33 committees, it's quite difficult to have a full free day in my diary, because every day I'm at meetings for committees. So that was a point I was trying to get across, not necessarily the point about travelling. It's a point it would take a full day. So like I said, it would need to be in the middle of the day, and it would take a full day. So it's finding a space in my diary to accommodate that. Thank you.
No, that's no problem. I understood that completely. It's a 7-hour day. Like I say, I think you've been very optimistic, Ben, when it comes to that from yourselves. After this on our side, it is 7 hours. But members, then if that's the case, I'll propose a site visit as been requested by the applicant for the review. And I would say, going by the consensus that's there, that's probably a given. But I'm getting nods for Councillor Campbell, just for the record. Emma's already said it clearly. Hopefully we'll get yourself, Councillor Dashman, Councillor Hill there as well. But we'll work hard in order to... There's 2 aspects to this. To make it accessible to all elected members, but at the same time, it has to be reasonably expedient as well. So we don't want to be sitting, waiting here and come back here in 2 months' time. Ideally, next 3 or 4 weeks, we will be back, re-adjourned, and be able to make a decision. So... let's be explicit in regards to what we want for the site visit. I'll kick it off. I like to see the topography. We're looking at the detail. We had a letter. The second letter contained within our exempt documents spoke about accessibility, how that affects a particular applicant, so on and so forth. 3 gates were even mentioned. So I'd just like to have a look at how the logistical and operational function of the farm itself and how it works. I would like to understand that. I'd like to understand the distance. So I'm a bit of a wee just going off here because members come in whenever they want. I'd like to see actually from both the farm and the application site itself what it is, what the route's like, how quick that can pause. Even time was saying it's 7 minutes, well under 7 minutes on foot, but a lot quicker with a quad. The other aspects is actually the Department of Plan and Environment Appeals. I'd like to see the detail in regards to that, ideally before the site, so we can look at that, so it puts it into context. But there was a local review body recently in the West region as well. I think I'd like to see that as well, please, Robert. I can't give you the reference number, but I remember being right. Robert knows that case. Emma, you spoke about you wanted to understand the accessibility of the house itself. The second house, is that DDA compliant, maybe? But I'll let you come back on that. But that's how I'm kind of summarising what my understanding of what you were asking for. So in simple terms for me, and Robert will probably go through these at the end, but is the actual site, the topography, the operational workings of the farm, the actual layout itself, the farm, the distance, the timings, and Emma, your other point what I'm picking up on, which I don't think anybody else came up with any other things beyond, was the disability access to the existing second house, which is not the particular farmhouse. Members, will open up to yourselves. I've summarised what my thoughts were as well as a wee bit of Emma's, but come back in and tell me if there's anything. So in regards to the site visit, we have to be explicit in what we're going there for and what we're asking for, so we'll get there and we can address all the issues that we've got. Councillor Campbell, John.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, no, you summed up my thoughts round about the farm area, for example. You know, there's been talk about the distance away from the farm, for example, and if I get a feeling round about looking at the actual farm itself that there doesn't appear to be any sort of area suitable, you know, that might make the case of the reasons why it should be in the location where the applicant has decided to put the new build. So that in particular for me, I need to have that sort of right in the back of my mind that, the case officer was absolutely right in the decision that was made. That that it could be, or that there is a potential of having a new build nearer the farm as opposed to where it is. But I need to see that for myself. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, John. So we've captured your thoughts here as well. Emma, just for absolute clarity, if somebody's put something in the chat, I'm not sure because okay, that's Fiona, I think. Emma, did I summarise your thoughts close enough? I will ask Robert to summarise at the end.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to make sure I fully understand the need for labourers, farm help to be dwelling on the site, and to understand that the other property, the second property, which the son currently lives in, is not going to be appropriate for the owner to live in. So just wanted to understand that, but I believe that this really is more about the placing of the house than that, but I'd still like to understand it. Thank you.
Thank you, thanks very much for that. Robert's got that. See, just as I don't know if I've never asked this question, but if it was a Saturday morning or something like that, are members up for that beyond the normal working week, or has it got to be through the working week for them? Go on, Emma, just come in. Sorry, members, just come in.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy with the Saturday, but also I think Fiona suggested the 14th, which is also good for me. I'm happy. I'll be flexible.
Sorry, just again, I haven't seen that. I haven't read that. So just had a quick look now. 14th. Okay, members, I'll tell or do. If we can get an agreement, I'll ask Robert to summarise what we can. We'll stop the session and we'll try and formalise the date here and now if we can once we've finished, but we'll do that out of session. Robert?
Thanks, Chair. From listening to that, I think all of the members present are wanting to undertake a site visit to look at this. And the key points I noted were, amongst you all, you wanted to look to see the topography of the site and the surroundings. You wanted to look at the issues surrounding accessibility, particularly in relation to the existing two houses at the site. You wanted to look at the operation and the layout of the farm at that location and to understand that. You also wanted to look at the road between the farm unit and the application site. You wanted to look at the distance between the two, both in terms of time, how long it took, as well as a kind of actual measurement. You were also looking for further information to be circulated from myself. One of those documents was the appeal decision, which I've mentioned previously, and I don't have the reference off the top of my head at the moment. It's within the clerk's notes. That's reference PPA 172.165. It's quite quick for me to do that. There's no difficulty doing that as well. The other one you were looking for were details of the LRB case. Now, I have a feeling that was LRB case 3 of 2023, which was an application at West Goldnoch Farm near Stonykirk, and that was for a house in the countryside. And again, the critical issue there was the distance of the proposed application site to the farm unit. So I can certainly circulate that decision notice amongst members as well. So that would be additional information. The other thing, again, coming back to the site visit, you were keen to understand details of the second home, or the second dwelling house rather, that's located at the farm unit site, and if that's DDA compliant. You were trying to look at whether the area around the farm hub, if you like, was unsuitable to accommodate a house. You were keen to check that out during the site visit, and you were also keen to understand the need for a dwelling house on the application site and ensure that the second dwelling house at the application site didn't offer an opportunity for an extra house in this case. So it'd be a combination of further documents to be circulated, then the site visit taking place, and then there'd be the question as to whether you would reconvene to meet to determine the case after the site visit that day. But that was my understanding of it, Chair.
That's right in the money as far as I'm concerned. Members got anything to add beyond what Robert said there? I think that's a good summarisation, I should say, of what we've discussed. Nobody's coming in. Members, so remember, don't go offline. We'll finish the meeting here, so we'll go adjourn until a further date, which looks like at this moment in time 14th of February, I think, but we'll come to that point very shortly. Members, no further business beyond this because we're adjourning. Thanks very much. As far as the public's concerned, the meeting will be stopped right now. Thank you.